What's up, YouTubers and plant lovers? It's Justin coming to you from the Big Blue Nation once again, and today I was going to do an update video on the coconut palm. Now, as you could probably tell, this is not the original coconut palm that I started with. Unfortunately, I came home one day after a long day of work. He was on the ground, out of his pot. A couple of the leaves had been damaged, and I tried to revive him. It was a long, tiresome week, but it didn't work. Fortunately, the next day, I kind of had a feeling that the tree wasn't going to do well, so I went back. Got this one at Myers and have had it for about 6 months now. So essentially the day after the other one fell down and had its demise, I went out and got this new one. And there for about a week and a half, I had two of them, and I was trying to revive the other one, and unfortunately I didn't make it. Now, I've had this one, like I said, for about 6 to 7 months now. And as you can tell, it's done really, really well. Now, all the research I've done with these trees say that anyone who tries to keep these as a houseplant borders on insanity, just because with the extreme care and everything that they need good amounts of water, an excessive good amount of water, excessive sunlight, humidity, particular soil, particular fertilizer. It's just all a recipe for chaos and a really bad idea. But, I live in Kentucky, northern Kentucky, and I've managed to keep this guy alive for at least 6 months. And since I've had him, he's put on additional leaves. He's gotten really tall, put on some weight. His coconut, as you can tell, is starting to crumble, kind of die back, which is normal. So I've gotten some questions about that. It will begin to rot, and it will become kind of nasty, but it comes with the territory, and do with it whatever you can. Now, I really haven't had much of a problem with it yet, so this is all kind of fresh territory for me, and I'm not exactly sure on what all you should do with it, but me being the kind of person I am, I always pick at things and stuff like that, so I'm sure that's not the best idea, just because any kind of fresh skin and holes and openings will actually be a place to invite rot and disease and pests or anything into your plant and probably hurt it. So I will leave this guy alone for a while. I think right before I bring him in for the wintertime, I'll probably give him some more soil. It looks like he could use some. Now, I did learn that these guys aren't really too particular about what kind of soil they have. They really enjoy a kind of sandy, loamy, kind of really quick draining soil. So I use my Miracle-Gro cactus, palm, and citrus soil. And that's just because it's got a lot of sand in it and it helps it drain really well. They do not like to be standing in a whole lot of water all the time, especially with this coconut on it. But, a whole lot of water really won't hurt these guys. They're from the tropical areas, so they do like a lot of rainfall, a lot of water, and they get a lot of rainfall a year. So annually, I don't remember how much it is, and I'm sure they don't like to be standing in it all day. Like, I'm not from a tropical area, so I really couldn't tell you about that. But I've made sure that this guy has adequate drainage holes on the bottom of the pot, and a plastic pot will hold water better than like a terracotta or a ceramic or anything else that kind of helps you wick the water away. So plastic will hold the water in there, but give it some drainage holes. Now, I do not use a saucer or a little plastic pot or anything under here to kind of hold water in. In the hotter parts of the day, I do kind of try to add a little bit of water, but I let the excess water kind of run out. So just be mindful of that. Give it plenty of water, and make sure this guy has adequate sunlight too. These are palm trees. They're not really big as far as the roots are concerned. They do have nice roots, but they're not like great roots, and they grow kind of shallow. These trees are used to growing in kind of sandy soils and whatnot, so they're easily overturned, and they really don't grow that deep as far as the roots are concerned, that I've learned. So next year, assuming around springtime that he makes it through the wintertime, we'll probably go ahead and open it up, take the plant out, and trim the roots up, add more soil and everything else, and put it in a bigger pot. Other than that, I really haven't learned too much with this guy. This was the second or third one that I had. I think I had one a couple years ago, didn't last long at all. The second one got knocked over. I'm not blaming anyone. I think it was the cat, but it could have been the wind. And this guy, my third time's a charm, has done really well. I've learned that spider mites can kind of run rampant on these guys, and aphids can kind of cut loose in the soil. Mealybugs can kind of be a problem too, so you can just kind of spray those off with your water hose, put it in the bathtub, and use your detachable shower head. Fertilizer. These guys with their massive green, long, large leaves like a lot of nitrogen. If you could find something that has a ratio of 2 to 1:1 or 10:5:5, anything like that, you want the nitrogen to be a little bit higher, and that would be really good for a palm tree, especially a coconut palm. So whenever you're buying fertilizer, make sure the nitrogen is up higher than the potassium and the phosphorus. Other than that, they like bone meal, dolomite lime, and some kelp meal. Now that formula right there, I think they also like some ground up tea leaves in there, can kind of help them out. But it's not very high in the magnesium. So use some Epsom salt. And as you can kind of see, some of these leaves are losing their color and they're turning brown. So a lot of them have already died. You are fine to go ahead and bend them back and kind of remove it as close to the core as possible without actually cutting into the stem. But if you do see a lot of discoloration with the leaves and some dying, I would go ahead and use some Epsom salt. About 1 to 2 tablespoons per gallon of water, depending on the severity of the case. Like this guy right here, he doesn't have a whole lot in the way of dying and discoloration, so I'll probably give him about 1 tablespoon to a gallon of water. And I find with warmer water responds well to the coconut palms. You don't really want to use ice cold or cold water, but with the Epsom salt, the warmer water kind of dissolves a little bit better too. So I'll just go ahead and pour that in there and add it around the soil and let it kind of leak out the bottom, and that will kind of help with the discoloration and everything also. Now I've got my sanitized pruning shears right here, my trusty ones. So you want to make sure that they're clean, especially if you've used them on another plant. You can actually spread disease between plants if you go from one plant to another with cutting on it with your pruning shears. And like I said, you want to kind of peel it back some and then kind of cut it off as close to the base as possible. But you don't want to nick the stem, and you don't want to kind of like break into the coconut too bad, because anything that kind of peels back and adds some fresh greenery to be cut on or anything like that will actually invite in pest or disease. So make sure you're mindful of that and be very careful when you cut, and you can kind of cut off some of that stringy stuff too that you see. Now, as I was saying, unless you live in a tropical area, these trees don't really do that well, especially inside. Now, these trees like a lot of sunlight. They like a lot of humidity, especially in the wintertime. Now, when you bring them in for the wintertime, if you live anywhere that's not really tropical, you want to make sure that you have a humidifier. This is a tropical plant. It likes its humidity. Life really does kind of go on as normal in the wintertime for these guys. Normal for the tropical regions, not normal for us. So you don't want to bring them into your house and put them in a place where they can get cold, drafty wind or air leaking in on them. So make sure that they still receive good artificial light. I mean, you may stick it in a south-facing window and that still may not suffice. So make sure you do use artificial sunlight to kind of help them out if they're missing a whole lot of light. You'll feed just as normal also, maybe even adding Epsom salt once a month. Fertilizers you can dilute by half just to make sure that you're not overfeeding them. And then watering kind of the same as normal also, because like I said, these guys really don't go dormant. They don't really have a dormant period. Their wintertime is just the same as their summertime. I mean, yeah, they'll have a little bit less light, but they'll probably still get the same amount of water, maybe just a fraction, a little bit less. Now, I'm not sure on what kind of weather you guys have had here as of late, but it's October 1st, and the heat and everything in Kentucky has been really high. It's been really dry. It's been really hot. I just moved to a new town, and I feel like I moved into a desert because I've been here for about 3 or 4 weeks now and haven't seen rain once. So make sure that you are keeping the soils relatively moist, especially in the summertime, even though we're now in fall. fall. So these September, October, August months are still just as hot. I know that towards the end of October it will cool off some, but as of now you really couldn't tell. So just make sure that you keep your soils kind of moist for these guys, because if they're going to be in the sun all day, it's going to really take a toll on them and kind of drain them, even if they are tropical plants, because they still will need water. As the heat index goes up, the water intake levels need to go up too, so keep that in mind also. That's another good reason why I always like to use a plastic pot, because you can always add drainage holes as needed, and they'll hold water in, and they're easier to move too, especially if you get a lot of mass with any particular plant. You'll want to make sure that you're not adding a whole lot of mass with your pots as well, because all that added weight is not good whenever you have to go to move these plants around. Other than that, I really can't think of anything else that I wanted to go over with these guys. I really just kind of wanted to show you. Unfortunately, I don't have a before video, but this guy's probably put on about 3 or 4 new leaves here recently. So I've had really good luck with this tree, and I wanted to kind of tell you about what I've done with it, what's brought me this good luck, and what's helped me with this tree to be really vibrant and add some mass onto it. So you'll just want to kind of look it over, make sure you don't see anything kind of crawling on it, any kind of pests, any kind of holes in there that might be indicative of a pest eating on it. But it looks now kind of normal wear and tear from the weather. I don't really see any spider webs or any kind of filaments like that. But like I said, spider mites, mealybugs, aphids all can kind of take a toll on a palm tree. And if I'm not mistaken, I think some scale can too. So just kind of pay attention to that. Try to use an organic means, Monterey BT, or the garden hose. I always like to take isopropyl alcohol, rub it on a washcloth, and kind of go over the leaves and stems, front and back, to kind of remove any kind of pest that's a little bit more stubborn and hangs on a little bit tougher. And that's really why I like to do these videos also, because I bring them in and look them over with the lights just to make sure that these guys are really doing okay. But go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know if you've got any kind of questions or any kind of concerns or anything. I've gotten several requests on an update video for this tree. I hope that I've answered any kind of questions that you guys may have. If you do have any questions or any concerns, let me know in the comments, and I will be sure to answer those to the best of my ability. Other than that, if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button or the bell next to it. That way you'll know anytime that I've uploaded a new video. You guys take it easy, have a good one, and don't forget, always plant prudently. Thank you, YouTube.